Hey everyone, this is Lori Greenwood, and today we're going to look at tips to getting started in Signalvine. If you're new to the EVCC texting team, be sure to check the G Drive for our best practices for texting or for the protocol on what to do if alarming content or direct threats should come in by text message. The main texting number that appears on the top banner of our website has now been rerouted to accept text messages in our new system in Signalvine. This means students will still be able to text us on our main texting number. And now let's take a look around inside the system. When you're logged in, you'll see that there are 4 main tabs here at the top. The Message tab is your inbox, where you can read and respond to individual student communications. The Context tab, think of that as your address book on Signalvine. This is where all the contact data is stored, and it's where you can also originate a bulk message that you want to send out to a group of contacts. The Programs tab holds a variety of features. Some of them are only available to program administrators, and some are available to all users. And finally, once we get a few campaigns under our belt, we'll have some fun with the Analytics tab. This will populate with data as we go, and it will help us review the success of our efforts and make discoveries about where new messaging is needed. So today, let's dive into the Message tab. In this left side column, you'll see the Message tab is divided into 3 main sections: Folders, Flag Types, and Programs. And while you'll see a lot of programs here, because I'm a system admin, you may only see 1 or 2 once you're signed into the system. In Programs, we can customize your data fields as long as that data lives in Radius. And you'll have the capacity to run your own campaigns. Then, as you click on the checkboxes to the left of the programs, you'll be able to see more text messaging in those areas. But for now, I'm just going to focus on System Admin, which is my seat, just to show you a little bit more about how things work. Now, if I wanted to text one-on-one with one of these students, all I would need to do is click on the contact's name, and that would bring me into the full message history. And every time we have texted a student, it will appear as a gray message bubble, and every time the student has texted us, it will appear as a blue message bubble. To send a message to the student, I can begin typing my message by clicking down here at the bottom in the message window. So I can begin typing here because I know I want to send Jenny a message to remind her that she hasn't completed placement yet. And I've included a link to the placement form. It's important not to use a shortened link like a bit.ly. Go ahead and use the full link. This will make sure that the message is not blocked as spam and gets delivered. You'll notice down here in the corner, the character count has moved up from 0, so it's telling me how much I'm typing. The thing that creates great engagement with the students is that this is not email, so keep your messages short and under 300 characters whenever possible. Then next to the character count, you'll see a blue smiling face. If you click on it, you'll get the full library of emojis, because it's not really texting unless you use some emojis. And while we frown on using some of them, which you'll find out when you read the EVCC best practices for texting, a smiling face or a thumbs up every once in a while does warm the message up. And you're going to see that students are definitely going to send you back emojis. Then if I click on the lower right corner icon, this will allow me to attach 1 or 2 images from my desktop directly to the message. So in Jenny's case, I know that she is interested in taking more in-person classes. So I'm going to send her how to look for hybrid classes in the online class schedule by sending her a screenshot. And here you can see that I have my whole message plus my attachment all ready to go. Now I have a choice to either send it right away or I can schedule a future date. So if I wanted to send this tomorrow morning, I could send this just before 10 a.m. Now when I press send, it will simply store it on the message calendar until tomorrow morning when it needs to be sent. One thing to note here is that my name can be found under any of the messages that I've already sent. And in some cases, I'll see that my program name appears whenever an automated message or campaign has gone out. So I'll always be able to tell which staff members contributed to helping Jenny or which campaigns she received simply by checking the information underneath the message. Now, there's one thing we do need to be careful of. It is possible for staff members answering students to overlap each other and send 2 answers. I know this is on Signalvine's roadmap to correct, but until they get there, we can come up with ways to help each other be aware that we're answering a student. For example, since I'm already talking to Jenny, I could click this flag up top that can be used really for any kind of alert. And once I've checked that, it will be visible in the inbox to anyone else in my team as a signal that someone else is already answering. So that's a way that we can prevent ourselves from overlapping. Over here on the left-hand side, the inbox is divided up into different folders. You can see all conversations for the programs that you have access to. If I clicked into Action Needed, that number would show me only those that needed attention or had not yet been read. Essentially, these are new unanswered messages, so they're marked as action needed. If I go ahead and respond to the student, like I did for Jenny, the quickest way I can move this message from needing action to no action needed is to click this blue speech bubble up in the corner. As soon as I click this, you'll see that it will turn to gray. And then, if I refresh the page, the number for action needed will drop from 2 to 1, and Jenny's message is no longer in the action needed inbox. This is pretty similar to the archive in Mongoose. So once you've addressed a message, click the bubble to mark it as no action needed, and it'll be tucked away in the archive. You could also select your message here and then say that you wanted to mark it as no action needed. So there are a few different ways that you can archive the message. That if Jenny were to text us back with another question, even though we tucked her away in no action needed, she would put herself back into action so that we could answer her next question. That's how the folder area works. Then we can go to the flag type. I could check to see if there were any messages that were still flagged, whether that was because someone else was answering them or for another purpose. I could find those specific flagged messages, or I could look for unflagged only. You may have also noticed as we were going through this, particularly with Jenny's message, that when it was still unread, it had a small orange dot that appeared to the side. Of course, once you click, the dot disappears because the message has been read. Let's talk about ways to search within the inbox. If I use the link to Advanced Search, I can filter the messages I'm looking for. For example, I could look for messages that came in today, or I can select a date range for something I'm searching for, maybe from last week. Or if I was interested in narrowing my students to work only with students that had made it to the application stage or beyond, I could rule out prospective inquiries by simply saying, if the student's ID is not blank, please pull those students up. And now I have 2 students that meet that criteria. I could also use this criteria search to look for things like search for a word that's in the message body, or maybe search for a message that was sent by one of my colleagues where I could look the person up by name. In this case, though, I want to stay with my original criteria, which was to look for a student ID is not blank, and if I wanted, I could save this search. But let's say that I wanted to send a message to these people that I have pulled up through my search. So rather than selecting new message, I could select send to current results, and here it'll show that my criteria has 2 contacts where I can enter my message, and I could make this a little more personable by saying hi, and then by pressing on this tag, adding one of the data fields, in this case first name. I can still add emojis or attach my photo like I did before, but once this is ready to go out, I can either send it now or schedule it for a future date. I'm just going to go ahead and send it now. It's going to ask me to confirm my message to make sure that I have everything here that I want and that I really do want it to go out this evening. If it's okay with me, I'll just press send. If not, I can go back and edit the message. If I decide to save my search, it's not just going to save my list of 2 people that sent. It's going to save my criteria in a dynamic way, so that if next week 6 people meet the criteria, it will pull up a search of those 6 people. So the list may change over and over, even though the criteria remains the same. Now, if I go back to my folder and I look for my contact Jenny that I talked to before, you'll see that Jenny's name is also a hyperlink, and if I click on it, I can see any information that I know about Jenny on one side while also messaging her on the other. And I can check to learn new things about Jenny while still having the full messaging capability, the full emoji menu, and the ability to attach my MMS file. When I'm looking at the contact record, it's important to note that the essential information will always appear at the top. The first name, the last name, the phone number. All contacts in the system will enter under a group called New Participants. As they enter the system, whether they're pushed in through Radius data or they text in themselves, will be marked as a new participant. This information that's essential at the top will remain intact. Other information in the custom field area will be pushed over from Radius CRM and will overwrite data in here nightly. So as a contact moves through their student life cycle, from prospect to applicant to student to alumni, pieces of information in this area will shift. And finally, the last item you'll want to know here is about opting in and whether the phone number is valid. A contact can opt out of any program on a per-program basis. So they may opt out of the main EVCC texting team that sends enrollment campaigns, but they may elect to stay opted in to something like advising. Whenever a student wants to opt out, this is done when they text one of the opt-out keywords: stop, cancel, unsubscribe, quit, or end. Any of these keywords will result in an automatic opt-out, triggering an automated message confirming that they've opted out. If for any reason a contact's message explains to you that they no longer want to receive messages, but it doesn't hit one of those keywords that trigger the opt-out message, you can select Set as Opted Out. This lets you manually change them to the opt-out status. This means that any program campaign messages would be blocked from sending to the contact since they're in the opted out status. The contact can also opt back in at any time by sending the words start or join. Those words will re-enroll the contact in the program. If the contact used a different word or wording, or if they were texting you questions and you could understand that they did want you to respond to them, but they were showing up here as opted out, you could then switch this information so that they again return to the status of opted in. If for any reason the phone is set to invalid, it means that the system doesn't have a validated cell number, and you may need to reach out to the student via email. When we cover the information on the Programs tab, you'll see that it is possible to export a list of invalid phone numbers if you'd like to try to update your contact records. And that's our overview of Signalvine's Message tab. If you've got any questions for me, just let me know.